Imagine being 16 years old and cashing millions in fake checks. Imagine flying across the world as a Pan Am pilot without ever taking a single flight lesson. This is the story of Frank Abagnale Jr., the most brilliant con artist in history. Or is it? For decades, we believed his movie Perfect Life. But today, we're uncovering the truth behind the mask. Buckle up, because the real story is even stranger than the legend. It all started with a gas card and a broken heart. When Frank's parents divorced, his world shattered. He ran away to New York with nothing but a few dollars. His first victim wasn't a bank, it was his own father. He used a credit card meant for gas to buy tires and batteries, then sold them back for cold hard cash. By the time his dad got the bill, Frank had already cleared thousands. He realized early on, people don't see the person, they see the status. At 16, Frank looked older, but not old enough to be a professional. He took his driver's license and a pen, and with one small stroke, he changed his birth year from 1948 to 1938. Suddenly, on paper, he was 26. This was the big bang of his criminal career. This tiny forgery opened the doors to bank accounts, credit lines, and a level of respect that a teenager could never dream of. The game was officially on. Frank noticed that pilots were treated like gods. In the 1960s, he called Pan Am headquarters, pretending to be a pilot who lost his uniform at a hotel. They told him exactly where to buy a replacement. He forged a license using a decal from a model airplane kit and walked right into the airport. He wasn't flying the planes, he was deadheading, hitching rides in the cockpit. He traveled the world for free while the real pilots bought him dinner. How did he fund his luxury lifestyle? He mastered the check float. In those days, it took banks days or weeks to verify a check. Frank would deposit a fake check in one city, withdraw the cash, and fly to the next city before the bank realized the paper was worthless. He was moving faster than the speed of information. He was a human printing press, dropping over 17,000 bad checks across 26 different countries. After nearly being caught at an airport, Frank pivoted. He moved to Georgia and checked into an apartment as Dr. Frank Williams when a neighbor, a real doctor, asked him to supervise a local hospital. Frank couldn't say no. He became the chief resident of pediatrics. He spent his nights frantically reading medical textbooks to stay ahead of the nurses. He managed to survive a year without a single person realizing he didn't have a medical degree. Eventually, the hospital felt too small. Frank moved to Louisiana and forged a Harvard law transcript. But Louisiana required a bar exam. Most people study for years. Frank studied for 8 weeks and failed twice. On the third try, he actually passed. He landed a job in the state attorney general's office. He wasn't just a criminal anymore. He was a part of the legal system, hiding in the very office meant to catch people like him. While Frank was playing doctor and lawyer, the FBI was mounting a massive manhunt. Agent Joseph, she began a years-long cat-and-mouse game. Frank loved the thrill. He would stay in the most expensive hotels, often leaving minutes before the feds kicked in the door. He'd leave behind a taunting note or a forged check, almost like a calling card. He felt invincible, living a James Bond lifestyle while the world's best detectives chased his shadow. As the US became too hot, Frank fled to Europe. This is where his scheme went truly global. From France to Sweden, he lived like a king on a forged budget. But the stress was starting to show. He was looking over his shoulder at every border crossing, knowing that Interpol had his face on every wanted poster. The world was getting smaller, and the Sky King was running out of sky. After France, Frank was extradited to Sweden. The contrast was shocking. The Swedish prison was humane and clean, but Frank knew he was just a prize waiting to be claimed by the United States. He knew that the FBI was waiting for him back home. He spent his days in Sweden preparing for his return. knowing that a massive federal sentence was waiting for him on the other side of the Atlantic. As the plane landed in New York, Frank supposedly pulled off his most daring stunt. He claims he escaped through the toilet of the jet. He says he crawled through the septic system and dropped onto the runway while the plane was taxiing. Whether he actually fit through that tiny hole is a massive debate today. But the legend says that when the FBI opened the plane doors, Frank Abagnale was gone. The FBI finally cornered him in New York after a short, desperate chase. The judge wasn't interested in his charm or his stories anymore. Frank was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for multiple counts of forgery and fraud. After 5 years behind bars, the government realized Frank had a skill they desperately needed. They offered him a deal: serve the rest of his sentence working for the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. He would teach agents how to spot forgeries and understand the mind of a swindler. It was the ultimate poacher-turned-gamekeeper scenario. Frank traded his jumpsuit for a suit and tie, becoming a legend in a whole new way. But here is the final strange thing. In recent years, investigative journalists have challenged his story. Records suggest Frank spent much of those conning years actually in prison for smaller crimes. They claim he never worked as a doctor or a lawyer. Was his greatest con of all convincing the world and Hollywood that his life was a movie? Did he trick us all one last time? Whether his stories are 100% true or the world's greatest tall tale, Frank Abagnale Jr. changed the world of security forever. He proved that the biggest security flaw isn't a lock, it's human trust. We want to believe the man in the uniform. We want to believe the genius story. So, what do you think? Is he a reformed hero or just a master of deception who never stopped conning? Let us know in the comments.